Welcome everyone to Teamfight and Tactics. I am once again ImpetuousPanda, part of the Rising Legends broadcast team, and I'm joined today by Kenobi, who is also part of the Rising Legends broadcast team, but also one of the top French players from the French scene. Welcome, Kenobi, to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So you're a very special guest. Most of the time, it's only the top of the players, but in this case, you've also joined the broadcast for some of the events in this past set. We'll talk about that a bit later on to the interview, but I think it's just a really cool fact and really a pleasure to have you here with us today. First of all, I want to find out a bit more about you as a person, outside of TFT, outside of gaming even. What are you happy to share with us in terms of your personal life and kind of your journey until now?
My journey, as it were, is mostly now about TFT. As you said, I'm part of the Rising Legends broadcast team, but I'm also a competing professional player. And I'm also, with another player, we created a TFT Academy, where we do coaching, and so that takes up most of my time. TFT is my full-time career. Mm-hmm. But if we go back a little bit, I have an engineering degree in computer science, which I have never used. I've just gone straight into TFT after securing my degree, and I'm a huge music fan. I used to play in a lot of bands when I was in high school and before that, and you can't see it. It's out of frame, but there's my bass guitar in the back. Wait, can you see it? Oh no, it's right here. You can see it.
We see it now. Just the tip.
Yep.
And before getting into TFT, your gaming career, how did that start? What genres were you playing? What was your focus? Was it always kind of a casual thing? Was it a competitive thing in some point? How did that transition happen?
I was a huge League of Legends player, as most TFT players are, I think. I've played for LoL for about 7 years, and I was getting into amateur competition. I competed within my university team. We won the regional, inside of France, the regional championship a couple of times, and never made it actually far in the nationals. But I was mostly a competitive player, and at some point I got burned out of playing with a team and taking on the responsibilities of leading a team, because that's the role I always seemed to end up in, due to both the role I was playing. I was a jungler, and my personality. I like to take the lead and talk a lot, so I ended up being shot caller most of the time, and it ended up burning me out at the end, and I switched to something where I only had myself to take care of.
Mm-hmm. And for TFT, was it immediately something that was equally competitive? Was it at the first point, maybe, I'm not sure when you started playing, if you can let us know as well. Was it something more casual that turned competitive later on? How was that whole kind of experience for you?
I started playing in set 3.5. So that's now starting to be a while ago, and I got competitive immediately. Got masters in the first month I was playing, and from then I just realized that, hey, I never got to masters in League of Legends in 7 years of playing, and here I am after 1 month. Got to master. Always had a dream of doing esports as a profession, whether it be as a player, caster, or something related. So I was like, maybe that's my shot. That was at the very beginning of my last year of engineering school. And so I was just doing both at the same time, and by the end I was challenger, had competed in some decent tournaments, gotten some promising results, and decided to commit to a full year at the start, and see if I could make it a viable way of living. And then it snowballed on up until that point.
And where would you say, what set was a point where you transitioned from just being a top Masters player, getting to challenger maybe, to actually saying, hey, maybe I have the the talent and the skill, if I hone it enough, to actually compete at the absolute highest level, to make it to the GSCs, to compete in set 6, and you made it to all the GSCs, I believe. So how was that experience for you? When was that transition?
I think the transition from maybe I can be pro to okay, I am good enough to actually be pro happened during set 6 and 6.5. That's when I really solidified myself as someone that can reach challenger every time without having to put too much effort into it. Just playing gets me to challenger every time, and so that was the hinge moment.
And for most players, really that's all they focus on, playing. I think you proved it in set 9, joining the broadcast team officially. In set 8 was my first experience casting with you. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was a Super Brawl. And I was very taken aback, because usually players are very good at the game, very smart and knowledgeable about the game, but they have a harder time expressing what they know in kind of a fluent way and all this. So I was very taken aback, pleasantly surprised the first time we casted together, and very happy to see you joining in set 9, the broadcast team, more in an official capacity. How was that transition for you? Did you know that you wanted to do this, or you were good at this from way back? Was that something kind of a new experience altogether to even think about casting and being on air?
Casting was not a new idea. I had toyed with it during some, small time tournaments, or just casting the point of view of some other players with friends, and it's something that I really enjoyed. And I think I do a lot of coaching. I've done a lot of coaching always. From the very beginning, I was usually coaching my friends, actually, that played a lot less of the game, more casually. I was just always giving my input, and so that got me thinking about the game a lot, and having to express what the game actually was to someone other than me. So I could not only have the concepts in my mind; I needed to be able to translate them. And so I got into coaching more and more as a way to earn some income, and it's also something that I enjoy, and helped me become a better player and communicate better around the game, whether it be with other pro players or when it comes to a broadcast. That's when it also came into fruition.
Mm-hmm. And was there anything specific you did outside of just obviously explaining concepts? Was there anything you did especially to adapt to the role of being on air? Maybe you had maybe some nerves or pressure. It's not just a coaching one-on-one situation. Was there anything you did to learn kind of the general broadcasting elements of casting, for example? Is there any way you kind of shortcutted that, or were you just a natural, just day one, it all came to you?
Oh, definitely not a natural. I used to do a lot of stage-related things when I was younger. Growing up, I mentioned music. So I've played in a lot of concerts and in front of crowds of varying sizes, going from 10 people to 800. And that I also did a lot of circus. I was actually the president of the circus association at my engineering school, and dance as well. So a lot of activities related to performing on stage. So I had that part down, the experience being in front of people. And then to try and be as good as possible on the broadcast, even though it's, just like most of the casters, where English is not our first language. I had practiced some turns of phrases and the ways I wanted to talk about some champions, and then the practice, I practiced a little bit on that, and then by streaming as well.
It's good to hear. We jumped the gun a bit with the whole discussion about the casting stuff. I want to go back to set 6.5. That's where you really started popping off from a competitive standpoint, from a consistency standpoint of qualifying in tournaments, showing up. That's when I first started casting, and already you were one of the names that was top of mind when I thought about France and its players. So you picked the right set to pop off in that sense. From then on, how did the rest of competitive go for set 7 and 8? Did you find that same consistency? Did you find where did you have any weaknesses, or any, was it ladder, was it tournaments? What was your kind of scope when it came to competitive?
Well, set 7 was a really, I was about to say cute story, but it really wasn't. I had a really sort of meteoric rise in set 7, where I qualified for Hex League, so the French TRC, and the EMEA finals at the same time, because I got 2 good finishes in GST 1 and 2 for set 7. So set 7 was full of big successes. Got my first salary, actual pro player salary from a team at the same time. And then set 7.5, I absolutely bombed everything. Went, I think, second to last in Hex League, and I got relegated in the up and down. Went, I think, dead last in EMEA finals as well, which some people would say, well, you got there in the first place, so it's an accomplishment. But trust me, when you're there and you're just not even making 10 points in the first day, you do not feel good about it. And so that was my set 7 and 7.5. Big start of massive success, and then I completely failed to adapt. And once I got into this sort of downward spiral where I was doubting everything I was making, because I had no success, so I was trying something different, which I had less experience on, and so no success, and keep looking and just spiraling downwards more and more as time went on. And then came set 8. Where I got consistently better and better, mostly at the mental aspects of the game. Had to, recover from my absolutely atrocious set 7.5. And so I worked on that with some help from some other players, and got through that, got better, and set 8.5, qualified for Hex League again, despite no big success in GSCs. And wait, I'm messing up my timeline, am I? I qualified for the Hex League in set 9, not 8.5, yes. Set 8 and 8.5 got gradually better and better, but no good finishes in GSCs. Could not qualify for Hex League again because it's a really grueling process. I'd say it's harder to qualify for Hex League than to remain in the Hex League, if that makes sense. And then set 9, I finally got my success, went first in the first qualifying tournament for the Hex League, and had all the time to focus on that. And then I got into the broadcast as well, which let me go ahead.
Outside of the mental aspects you talked about that you improved upon and you consciously tried to work on in set 8, was there anything that you learned from, obviously in set 7, you mentioned it, you have this huge rise. You obviously, I think this comes with a lot of confidence, a lot of kind of fake momentum where you're really just maybe overperforming a little bit, and then you met kind of the reality in set 7.5. Coming back from that mentally is hard, but also having to maybe relearn certain things about the game, fundamentals, and find a way to consistently improve is not an easy thing as well, after already having a taste of what success might taste like. How did you end up doing that from an in-game perspective? What was the way you tried, the method with which you tried to improve at the game?
Well, the main way I tried to improve at the game was to actually reduce my game time and spend more time thinking, talking, and watching other players play the game. And that, ended up paying a lot of dividends, because I had this, idealized notion in my mind that by just playing more, I would just keep getting better and better. But it actually had the opposite effect, because you get burned out of playing the same compositions more and more. If you play like 16 hours in a day, at some point you don't want to keep playing the same thing again. But if you play the same number of games, split over 3 days, then you'll feel much better about playing the same thing again, because there has been time and it's much easier. And because I was playing so much, and since I was failing, I was pushing myself to play even more. I was just, spiraling down. And so learning how to effectively use my time in ways that I was not playing has been the most important thing, honestly.
I think especially with playing a lot, as you're mentioning, you have certain fundamental habits that if you don't find a way to correct them outside of your own, environment, it's not going to happen. You're just going to keep falling for the same problems. And as you're mentioning, with micro habits as well, within a certain patch, the same can happen, where you have this false notion that a combo is very good. You keep playing it, you have some mixed results, but you only remember the very good results. And there's no one there to tell you, hey, look at the bigger picture. It's not actually that good. So I completely agree. And I think it's a sentiment a lot of top players have to use more often, especially when they have a kind of a rut in their momentum, to take a step back, actually play less, and just try and absorb information and just any different concepts from different players and different streams. So yeah, I definitely commend you on that. It makes a lot of sense to me. Coming to set 9, how did the whole transition to broadcasting work in terms of, was it your idea? Was it from set 8, from the Super Broadcast, where you maybe got some good feedback? You said, hey, I could actually try and do this as well on the side. What was the actual way you got into it? I'm curious.
So first off, I was invited as a guest for the Super Bowl. I think that was due to having one interview for a GSC where I got first in day 2. So I had an interview, and I think the broadcast picked up that, hey, there's a French player that actually speaks English properly, and that's good enough for the broadcast. And so I think that's why I was the one that was invited to be a guest on the broadcast for the Super Bowl and cast one game for where the French team would play. And I enjoyed that so much that I then went into the producer's DM and told him, hey, can I come again on the final day? Because I really liked it and it was awesome. I was like, well, sure. And then from that, I then told him that I really liked doing that. And if there were opportunities to do some more of it, I would be all for it. And then from there, I casted the University Sports Amazon Championship at the end of set 8.5, if I'm not missing the dates up, with Losher. And then I got offered to cast the GSC one, which I could, and then the Super Bowl as well.
Great to hear. Coming to set 9, with the set released, when kind of the whole thematic released, set 7, set 8 were a bit rocky in terms of player reception. They were very divisive mechanics. Some players loved them, some players hated them when it came to hero augments and the dragons. Set 9 seemed a bit more low to the ground, with not so many disparity in players that liked or would not like so much the mechanics for the set. What were your general feelings when the first theme was released, the champions, the traits?
I really loved the set 9 release and the reveal. It really feels like, well, it's not only a feeling, but it's the one set that really feels like there was the most work put into it. The champions and the synergies were complex and interesting for the most part. And there were so many good ideas. The reprints that they brought had a good reason to be brought back. And the addition of portals, removing some of the, especially the starting carousel, was super interesting to me. And I really think it was set 9 was the best we've had, and I'm having more troubles with set 9.5, especially with the few metas that we've had on the first patches so far. It's not to my taste.
And from a competitive standpoint, you came back to the Hex League in set 9. How was that process? How was the qualification? How was the general emotions of making it back finally? I know I've heard from many French players that it is a very tough road to make it back. Despite your skill level, there's a lot of inconsistencies in how you qualify, and it's hard to guarantee it. How was that whole process for you?
Yeah, so I got the easiest pass through, as so the qualification in for one split is split up into 2 tournaments, right? 64 players for each tournament, and you qualify through ladder. In these tournaments, you have 3 days of playing with 5 or 6 games. I'm not 100% sure if it's 5 or 6 for each day. And at the end, if you are in the top 3 out of 64, you get 1 spot in the qualifications final. And if you're in the top 16, you earn points, kind of like GSC points, And then there comes the second tournament, where the players that went first, second, and third in the first tournament cannot participate because they're already in. Yep. And once again, top 3 get their spot in the qualifications finals, and the last 2 spots are taken by players that have the most points from tournament 1 and 2. And then you have to play your finals, which is 8 players. Top 4 advance to the up and down. And then you have to play the up and down, and the top 4 then get into the Hex League. And the up and down is against the 4 last players in the Hex League. So, well, getting 3rd out of 64 players is always super, super hard. There's so much variance into it. And then once you do that, there's still so much more work to do. And it just takes so many games. And if you fail at 1 point, then that's it. You've not earned anything as well. It's just you play for the sole possibility of qualifying for the Hex League as well, which is kind of like playing the GSC only to qualify through the EMEA finals.
But despite all this, you managed to do it. You managed to make it, despite the odds. How has the Hex League been in this set? I know you mentioned the set 9, you liked it a lot more than set 9.5, but overall, how has your competitive level been? How confident have you felt throughout this whole season?
I was coming in a little bit worried, because I'm only player to qualify twice for the Hex League, meaning that I was also one of the players that dropped out of it, and that made myself quite kind of apprehensive, because I was nervous about not recreating the debacle that was set 8.5 from 7.5 for me, and so I worked extra hard on coming in as confident as I could on my game plans, not being worried about playing something different than the other players. And, I consciously worked on the fact that I had to come in as a super confident player in order to not flake under the pressure, I'd say. I had to psych myself up, going like, you're better than them. Because you have to be arrogant to perform well in TFT at the competitive level. You have to believe that you are better than your opponent. Because if you do not, then you're going to start thinking, oh, he's just better than me, then I can't do that. And you're going to create fake roadblocks, mental roadblocks in your mind. And so if you do not have this attitude, you're going to, in my opinion, not be able to perform as best as you could. So that's the main thing I worked on, and that's how I went into the Hex League, knowing that I could take them all, and it really paid off, I think.
And you mentioned you've been working with Experian on the Pengu Academy. Is he also the player that you prep with the most? What does kind of your scrim group look like when it comes to the French players?
I practice a little bit with Experian, but he's not the player I work with the most. The two players I work with the most are not very well known in the pro scene. Their nicknames are Abeam and Sokati. Sokati is actually playing GSC next week. She qualified through Open Qualifier. And we're just a very small study group, and we work really well together. We've spent a lot of time, like actual IRL time, playing LANs together and boot camping a week before. And so we've got some really good synergy going because we have somewhat similar play styles, but we all have our differences. We all watch different streamers as well, and we have some slightly varying analyses on the game. And so we just bring a lot to each other. And Abeam is also taking more of a coaching role when it comes to especially the mental aspects of the game. He's the one shouldering a lot of that burden because he has a lot of experience from being an actual professional coach in StarCraft 2 back in the day.
It's a good person to have in your corner then when it comes to mental prep for big tournaments. Sounds like you have it all figured out. And what is kind of the minutiae of the actual prep? Do you guys do more VOD reviews? Is it more stat analysis? Do you try and actually theory craft and break down why certain things are working? What's the bulk of your prep, or what do you think is the most important part of the prep when it comes to your performance?
The most important part of the prep is actually the VOD reviewing of other players. Being able to dissect how other players play at their core, just not, oh, he's doing this and then he's going to do that. But we want to know what the original game plan is, what the default game plan is, and being able to break it all down, figure out what the core elements that enable or disable some compositions and allow them to work. That's really what we focus on. So we have lots of different builders related to different lines of plays that we have saved and that we can use and tweak as we understand the compositions more and more. But we start from the core elements of each compositions and what's required for them to work. So let's say if we take something that was really impactful on set 9, let's say Kale as a unit. She's a unit that required 2 Guinzus to be very effective, or 1 Guinzu and 1 very, very good attack speed item to compensate. And so, we kind of worked from ideas like that this character needs so much attack speed and so much time to ramp. But once she does, she actually wins.
And it's good to, you can apply that even between sets and between, just having that concept and seeing that it works, and you can apply that for the future as well. I think it's actually a very important skill for top players to have, to be able to adapt to a new set and learn it as quickly as possible. You can just contrast different kind of theory points from past sets, and actually a lot of developers kind of have an idea in mind already when they make a champion and kind of its purpose. So it does help with that a lot. With all this analysis and all this kind of in-depth thinking about the game, you mentioned coaching as well. How much does it help to be kind of prepping at this level to also coach? Are you still coaching now, for example, that you're competing at a high level? And how's the experience overall? How do you like it? What do you think fulfills you so much about coaching?
Kind of hard to say what fulfills me so much, because I've always loved teaching people. I also have a national diploma in camp counseling. I think that's the correct. Yeah, it's slightly different in France. I think it has some more importance. But yeah, I was a camp counselor for a few summers, and I also did some actual academic teaching in private settings. And so it's just something that I enjoy at my core. Teaching people is something that I like very much. And when it comes to coaching in TFT, does it help me as a player? Yes, a lot. Because as I'm not 100% certain which famous scientists say that, I think it's Mr. Feynman. Being able to put a concept into words means you have mastered it in some way. And so being able to find what the actual key elements are and to bring them out in front of the students for them to understand is something that's helpful as well as a player. And when it comes to what we do at the Academy with Experian, the thing we do the most is VOD reviewing from other pro players. And so that's obviously very useful to me as well. It's pulling double duty of I'm doing some actual VOD reviewing that's useful for me, and I'm also trying to translate it for the students as well at the same time. So it's why it's working so well, and it's allowing us to have so many different roles that and still be functional beings, you know.
And when it comes to coaching with the academy, especially this being kind of a newer project, what is the big picture goal for the academy? Is your goal to just have success stories of players that start off in plat or diamond as their peak and are able to break into masters or challengers? Is it just generally trying to help out the French community and help these players enjoy the game more and interact with the game more at a high level, and that way create just a bigger community overall? What's the big picture goal for you guys?
The big picture goal is to create an actual community that is close to what you would have in a town dojo, like a big city dojo. There's lots of people that would do martial arts in there, and they would help each other. It's a place where they can come in, first and foremost, feel welcome and feel like they can practice at whatever the level that they want, and find someone to practice with them, to discuss at their level, and no matter which it is. And so that's what we want to create, to try to recreate that in a virtual space. In practice, it takes the form of a Discord server, which is home to a lot of different channels where they can just chat about anything related to the game, really. And so we want to be able to create that space for the French community, and I've been toying with the idea of making that a reality for just the English-speaking community in general, but can only juggle so many things at the same time, so it's taking some time to come to life as well.
It's great to hear. It's a really cool initiative, and I really like the focus and kind of the idea for it as well. I think it resonates with me as well, especially. I like kind of casting and teaching. I think it same role in some sense. So really, it sounds awesome, and really happy you guys are going for this, and it's working out, it seems like. So really happy for you, Kenobi. We're getting close to the end of the interview, but before we do, I want to ask you, outside of your own individual career in TFT, you've been around the French community for a long time. I think you're an important pillar for the reasons you're mentioning, with coaching, with kind of a lot of different things, all the way back from set 3.5. What is your opinion on the French TFT scene right now? Germany has been growing a lot in competitive achievements, and in even the bulk of their players is just a much bigger group that are all performing very well. It's just a surprise to you. Where do you see French when it comes to the EMEA scene?
I think the French community has taken a step back from what it was a couple of sets ago, in terms of prominence, in terms of volume, and in terms of success as well. We've had some, I want to say a head start, because we had some massive League of Legends players turn into TFT players and really drive the community forward, like Sean's or I'm So Fresh, even though he's Belgian and not French, but French speaking still. After some very insane early successes, double 61, getting world champion, double European champion as well, and feels like the community has kind of taken it for granted a little bit, and now the other countries and regions in the EMEA especially are catching up. For example, the German community has put us back in our place at the previous Super Bowl, for example, and I think the French community is getting progressively maturing. There are more diverse groups that are emerging. It's maybe a little bit harder to see from the outside, and especially outside of France, because it's kind of a small scale groups. But if you are embedded in the pro scene, you will come across them time and time again. The OGs, let's call them, the group around double 61, Kenobis, Enzo, and all these players were really center place before, and now they are getting not pushed to the side, but they have been joined by other groups that are now trying to take the spotlight, and we'll have hopefully some talent that can compete with the generation of German players that are eager to fight us on the title for the best country in EMEA.
That's always a good thing. More competition means that more drive to improve, and overall, I think I've been talking about this for EMEA for a long time. This is always going to be better for the region as a whole, and this small amount of complacency that you're mentioning from the French scene, maybe in the past 2 sets or so. I think a similar thing happened on a global scale with China, especially I think we saw the results in the last World. So
yes,
very interesting concepts, and we'll see what happens in this GSC. And also in EMEA finals as well. We'll see what the story will be when it comes to nationalities. But Kenobi, thank you so much for your time. You were so well spoken. I got to know you so much more outside of just our time on broadcast. And again, best of luck this weekend. I'm really happy to see that you qualified. And hopefully you can make us washed up casters proud and put up a very good result.
Hopefully. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care, Kenobi.
Bye.